Well, we don't have Kurt or Jessica with us, but I'm going to go ahead and get started so you guys can go finish your evening in something pleasurable other than listening to me. So why don't we do some introductions? And Corey, why don't we start with you?
Okay. My name's Corey Zielsdorf. I am a local realtor in the city of Newberg. That's where I reside, in the Greens. And I'm also active in Rotary here in town, and I'm on the Yamhill County Realtors Association board. And I'm a realtor. Yeah. That's it.
Charlie?
Charlie Harris. My only claim to fame is that I used to work with Rick Rogers' wife, Lisa. So, did low-income housing development all over the state. So that's my background.
Okay. Jack?
Yeah, I'm Jack Riz. I'm a recently retired architect, commercial architect. Lived in the Newberg, Dundee area since 1962. Currently, I live in just outside city limits, but I've lived in the city for 30 years, probably.
Okay. Todd, you're up next.
Engel. I work at Friendsview, a retirement community there in Newberg. I've been there since 2004, and we're always working on some kind of construction project or expansion project. Got a lot going on. I don't need to talk about all that, but also on Rotary with Corey. And I got to meet Abisha. We've been doing some things with hiring and housing. And I really like Newberg and glad to be on this committee.
Abisha?
Hi, I'm Abisha. And you had me pegged. Actually, I wasn't on camera because I was effectively stuffing my face with dinner, but I'm here now. Yeah. So Abisha Stone, I'm the Yamhill County Economic Development Manager for SEDCOR, and SEDCOR stands for Strategic Economic Development Corporation. We serve Marion, Polk, and Yamhill County, and I serve on contract with Yamhill County. I focus mostly in the traded sector arena, but we also do a lot of community development sort of work for the county. And for example, I currently lead the Newberg Workforce Housing Consortium and partner with the Board of Commissioners on their grant programs. And some of that work we're doing right now is trying to seek EDA funding for affordable housing and random things like that. So I'm coming at it from a different angle, and I look forward to learning from all of you.
And so not with us this evening is Kurt Walker, and Kurt's a developer. He's going to function as the chair, and Jessica Kane, a local attorney, she's going to be functioning as the vice chair. So why are we doing all this? You may say, well, we just did a housing needs analysis. Charlie asked me that question. I said, yes, we did, but we're updating it. So as we're working towards doing an evaluation or not of an urban growth boundary expansion, there's two foundational pieces of information that we need to have put together. So one of those is our housing needs analysis. The other is our economic opportunities analysis. And there's a third leg to that stool. It's the public, semi-public land analysis. So all of you, except for Abisha, were on the HNA that we worked on for about a year with Echo Northwest. Finished that up in June of 2019, got it in front of council and acceptance in August of 2019. But as we embarked upon the EOA process, we were going to be working with opposite or different time horizons, that 20-year time horizon that you use in Oregon. So I budgeted some money to do a kind of a surgical technical update to the housing needs analysis. And that would be addressing our buildable lands inventory and our population number. So the legislature changed the law. Portland State University now does all the population projections for every city and every county in the state of Oregon, except for the Portland metro area. And they were not going to do the population update until next year, but they accelerated by 1 year. So it's like, if I have an EOA with one population number and an HNA with another population number, that's going to cause some consternation for people saying, well, your data sets are not consistent and accurate. So I budgeted some money to do this surgical update to the HNA, but then the Oregon legislature passed House Bill 2001 and 2003. HB 2003 provided funding to update your housing needs analysis. So we applied, and we were awarded a $10,000 grant to do this strategic surgical update. And we've hired Echo Northwest, who worked with us on the last round of this. And I just signed that contract today, or I didn't. It got signed today. So we now have our grant contract in place. We have our consultant contract in place. So the first step is to do this orientation meeting. So Charlie, that's why we're doing this again. There'll be things that we're not going to do in the HNA update, and I'll walk through all of that so everybody has an understanding. You may remember or may not remember that back in June, the data showed us that we were 108 acres shy of residential land over a 20-year period. Since that time, we've continued to develop our residential land. So we've got developments occurring up north with Dutchman Ridge, Kings Landing. We've got development down south with River Run subdivision. There was a subdivision up north that it finished building out. We've had Gracie's Landing finished building out all of its homes. We've got another subdivision that we approved called Eastland. We've done a variety of partitions, and homes are being constructed on those. We have a new apartment project under construction down on River Street. We're getting ready to release some permits for another apartment project over off of Springbrook Road, just behind Rite Aid. And we just issued another land use decision for the second phase of that apartment project. And then we've got a variety of things going on at Friendsview as well, though they won't be under construction during this time frame. So with that, we know that the 108 acres is the deficiency is actually more than that now. And we don't know what that deficiency is when we add in the need for this public, semi-public land. So that's another thing that I budgeted for, and we've contracted with Echo Northwest to do that work for us. So that's why I reached out to everyone and said, hey, would you like to come back? It's a short stint. We're only gonna meet for about 4 months and then you're done. So get you in quickly and then get you out and you can go on and do other things. Except for Abisha, she's got to stick with me forever and ever and ever. So I've had, in conversations I've had with our consultant, we will be going back in what's called Section 2 of the Housing Needs Analysis. If you haven't looked at it recently, it's available on our website under the Community Development Planning page. So we're going to be updating the residential buildable lands inventory. We are not going to make any changes to Section 3, which is the historical and recent development trends. You know, we're less than a year old in that document and trends really haven't changed. We will not be updating Section 4, which is the demographic and other factors section. We believe that that data is still current. Section 5, which is the housing need in Newberg, there will be aspects of that that will need to be updated. Section 6 is our residential land sufficiency. We'll be updating that section. We'll be updating Appendix A to that document, which is the buildable lands inventory. So what happens is when you come in with a new population number and our population number is actually a little bit less, than what it was from the last round, is that it will change a whole bunch of tables in the report. And the buildable lands inventory will change a whole bunch of tables in the report. So again, like I said earlier, it's a surgical approach. We're not going back and redoing everything from ground zero, because that would be, you know, a $60,000 process. And we didn't believe we needed to do that. The companion to that housing needs analysis was the housing strategy. And for those who participated, you know, we had a long list of potential strategies. The committee worked through and selected the ones that they thought were applicable to Newberg. And then we identified time horizons when we would implement those strategies. Well, we're going to be about a year past that now. So likely we'll go in and modify those tables and change the time horizons and move them out in time a little bit. I don't anticipate that we're going to change. We're not going to add anything into those new strategies. There's no new strategies that have come up from the legislature. And I think we kind of exhausted that pretty well with the last round of this. There is a companion piece that you will be looking at, and I've mentioned it a couple of times, and that's the public, semi-public land analysis. So like I said, we've contracted with Echo Northwest to do that body of work for us, and they've already gotten started on it. And they will be doing interviews with the city, the county, ODOT, school district, GFU, CPRD, and churches, and trying to glean out from them what they think their land need is over the next 20 years. So use as an example, ODOT probably doesn't have any land need within Newberg over the next 20 years. There is some right-of-way acquisition that they're doing currently within our urban growth boundary. And there's a few parcels that are within the UGB that they have not acquired land yet. And so it's all related to the bypass. For CPRD, in our comprehensive plan, we actually have different types of parks, acreage for those parks based upon categories, and it's all driven by population. And so we'll dive into that process and look to see, do we have sufficient parkland to serve our population 20 years into the future? From past research, we found that we're probably about 50 acres shy of parkland, but the consultants will, you know, get into it enough to give us a good idea. They'll talk with Fox to see if they have any additional land needs over the next 20 years. School district just went through a long-range facilities plan, and so I was on that, been on the bond committee as well, but we'll have conversations with them. Their horizons, they always look at are 10-year horizons, so we're going to stretch them a little bit and say, well, think out 20 years. And it may be that they don't have any additional land need. They've got a site down on Blaine Street, between Blaine 6th and 9th. It's the old Rennie school site, so they've got some land where they could do some additional school capacity in the future if they needed to. We anticipate the meetings will probably be an hour to an hour and a half in length. They will be shorter than we did the previous round. The first meeting will be dealing with the buildable lands inventory. Then we'll be looking at the population forecast. The consultants will be at 2 of the 4 meetings that we're going to have, given budget limitations. And so they'll be at the first meeting on the BLI. I will be there giving information on the population forecast. Then they'll come back and we'll look at the housing forecast. And then the final meeting is kind of the final document. We'll come up with a recommendation to the city council, should they accept this update. And then I'll take it to the city council, to the planning commission to get a recommendation from them in January, and then it'll get in front of the city council in February. I actually have a timeline with DLCD. I have to have this project finished up and the HNA submitted to them by the end of February of 2021. Any questions?
I have a question.
Charlie, you always have a question.
So, what was my question? Go ahead and I had a question and now I lost it here amongst all the paperwork.
Did it run away into the kitchen?
Yeah, along with the dog. I think the dog ate it. Yeah, the question was, amongst all the competing priorities between the public and semi-public lands and eco-devo lands and such, how do you prioritize the available land, whatever land is available?
Well, what do you mean by prioritize, Charlie?
Well, let's say the Parks Department needs more land, okay, and there's not enough zoned public land right now. We're asking presumably for more additional land for the housing. How's that get prioritized between the different focuses?
Well, these two processes don't go down that granular. So what the HNA and the EOA tell us is, do we have deficiencies or surpluses in our land supply? So we're starting with the housing needs analysis. We have a deficiency of approximately 108 acres.
And I thought there was also already a shown deficiency in industrial land, yeah?
And so where we're at in that process, and Abisha's, that's why I brought her on this so she can get the full picture of everything, is we have a 20-acre surplus of commercial land for the next 20 years, but we have about a 249-acre deficiency in industrial land. It's the UGB process, Charlie, that will get to the prioritization. So if the numbers hold and we need, let's say, 110 acres of residential land, we need 250 acres of industrial land, and I'll just throw a number out, it's hypothetical, and we need 70 more acres of parkland. There's not enough room, there's not enough space within our existing UGB to accommodate that. So that would mean I have to go to council in the spring of 2021 after all these studies are put together and say, do you want us to initiate an urban growth boundary expansion process with DLCD through the traditional Division 24 methodology? If they say yes, then I'll have to hire consultants and we will go down that path to try to figure out where do we come up with this 400, let's see, 253, 400 plus acres of land. And there's a whole hierarchy involved. And so first of all, you look at urban reserve areas. And we have a 500-acre urban reserve up north. We have a small one off of Clemic and Harmony. We have one that's the bypass is used behind the manufactured home park down off of what is now South McCurran Court, not Wilsonville Road anymore. And then we have another urban reserve area down south of Winooski. More than likely, we have enough urban reserve land to accommodate our residential. We have a surplus of urban reserve. The real question we'll get to is, where do you put the industrial land?
Same question you've been wrestling with for the last 20 years.
Absolutely. So, we'll look at urban reserve areas, and then we have to look at what's called exception lands. And those exception lands are primarily north and south of Highway 99 and south of Highway 240. There'll be some very robust conversations about that. Then you look at resource lands. In the first place you look is the class 4, 5, and 6 lands. Then you go up and you look at resource lands that are class 1, 2, and 3, so the high value farmlands. So there's a lot of work to occur after the EOA and the HNA are completed and accepted. There's a step for the EOA. If the council accepts that document, which would be again in around the February timeframe, is the council will have to make a decision and direct me to go ahead and do comprehensive plan changes to implement the EOA. And there's a process to work through with DLCD on that. And that decision could get appealed to the Land Use Board of Appeals. And LUBA can be appealed to up the chain, up the chain. Charlie knows the chain. So, but part of the approach with this is get the EOA done and get it acknowledged, and hopefully it doesn't get contested. On the HNA side, we can't, it's a different process. We can't go out and just change our comp plan. We actually have to take the HNA and it gets embedded in the UGB process. So there's a fork in the trail if we were up walking in the mountains. But those are all things that will be, you know, in the roughly the spring timeframe where council will have to be making some choices. That help, Charlie? Probably more than what you guys wanted to know, but that's the process.
And the same with the public lands part, that'll also be in the spring, or that's?
Yeah, that'll all get rolled in the spring as well.
Thank you.
So Doug, based on kind of what I gathered from as you were running through the sections of the existing HNA that we're going to be visiting and talking about, and the fact that we have a recent HNA, is this group more focused around fine-tuning the existing HNA, just bringing it up to date in a few of those sections? Is that where our work is?
Yeah, it's really focused on updating the buildable lands inventory and the population information.
Okay.
And along those lines, how does the HB 2001 bill say that says you have to allow duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and single-family zones? Do we look at that as part of the buildable lands inventory?
That's my question too.
No, we do not. So they just adopted those. Well, they just adopted the administrative rule for the duplex portion. It will be September when they adopt what I call the other middle housing, fourplex, cottage clusters, townhomes. We have an obligation to comply with HB 2001 duplex provisions by June 30th of 2021. So I have a separate committee that will be working on the duplex and the triplex and the quads and all of that. But this HNA will be done, your work will be done by December.
Well,
and so no, we will not be taking into consideration House Bill 2001.
So for example, if we decide we need more multifamily land, whether it be triplexes, fourplexes, or multifamily, how do we decide how much land is going to be needed if we don't, I mean, do we assign to single family zones a certain number of triplexes and fourplexes, or how's that going to work?
Well, so let's start with the duplex. What it says is wherever you allow a single family house, you have to allow a duplex. So this other committee will be looking at that in all of our R1 and R2 lands where we allow single family homes. And we will look at what the lot size is. So currently, Newberg's regulations is if you're an R1, the minimum lot size is 5,000 square feet. If it's R2, it's 3,000 square feet. If you do a duplex in R1, then the lot size has to be 10,000 square feet.
Whoa.
Yeah. So that's why nobody builds duplexes. So part of that process we'll be looking at, well, if you have a 5,000 square foot lot size, can you put a duplex on a 5,000 square foot lot? What you start to look at then is what the form is of the structure. So if you've got a 2,300 square foot single family home, let's use 24 because it'll be an easier number for me to do the math. Could you instead do a duplex that's 1,200 and 1,200 on the same lot size of 5,000 square feet? So it's a different way of looking at the efficiency of the land. On the issue about triplexes, quads, cottage cluster, and so forth, the administrative rule that's being crafted for that one is that housing type can occur in selected areas where you allow single family homes. It doesn't mean you have to allow it everywhere where there's a single family home. And so that's, again, this committee and the consultant they'll have to work through all of that. It's complicated, and we got many things going. Go ahead.
Sorry, isn't that part of the housing needs analysis / building lands inventory is trying to divvy up all that stuff, or
No.
don't we have to assign numbers of units to different?
Yeah, but we don't. You can't apply something before the effective date that you have to apply it. Does that make sense?
Well,
So they adopt a new administrative rule, but you don't have to comply with the rule until you get out to the end of June of 2021 for the first phase of it.
But we're looking at 20 years.
Well, it leads to we may have to come back at a later date again and look at the HNA. It's like a gerbil on the wheel in Oregon's land use system. You do something, then a couple years later, you got to go back and redo it again because laws and rules change.
So we're going to assume that you only do single family houses and possibly duplexes in single family zones. Is that the idea?
Well, and you can't mandate that you have to build a duplex. All you can do is provide the opportunity for a duplex to be built where you allow single family. And on the other other middle housing, you can define selected areas within the community where you want that type of housing to occur where single family is allowed. And I can't give you the answers to it. I don't have them yet. Got to do the work.
But it's outside the purview of this committee. That's what I guess I'm asking.
It's outside of the purview of this committee.
Okay.
Is there a committee already established to do that?
Will be officially formed on August 17th. I've got grant contracts back to DLCD. I'm waiting for the final version to come so we can sign that. And we've selected a consultant to help us go through that body of work. They've got a lot to do so we got to have the duplex done by June 30th of 2021. So that's the first priority, but they'll also be working on the other middle housing components, and they will have what we call adoption ready material done by the end of June of 2021. And then I will come back in the fall and take that to the Planning Commission and the City Council to get accepted, because we have to have that work done by the end of June of 2022.
So we're going to do a housing needs analysis that's going to be out of date in 6 months. Is that right?
Possibly.
You're more optimistic than I am. You always say possibly.
Well, the HNA will be what the HNA is at that point in time. Thing is, any HNA you do, the day you finish it, a week later, the world has changed. More houses have been built.
Well,
Okay.
given those realities, Doug, I appreciate that you're trying to keep this work as simple and straightforward for this committee as you can.
Trying to.
Given those, I can see Charlie's frustration, and given those frustrating realities.
So right now we're working on this housing needs analysis, our economic opportunities analysis. We'll be working on middle housing, the two components of that. We're doing an infrastructure-based time extension study for the areas immediately north and south of downtown that are residential to figure out where we have infrastructure deficiencies that might not allow for these other middle housing types to occur. And so we've got consultants on board on that, and they're starting to do that work. At the same time, we're working on our urban renewal program, which is a funding tool to try that we could potentially use to help be a catalyst to build more housing types, knowing that in our current HNA is that we chose to toggle, the committee had a lot of discussion about this, is to move away from 72% of our housing stock being detached single family, is for that to go down. I think the number was like 64%, but more of an emphasis on multifamily housing in the future. I've also been working with our Affordable Housing Commission and City Council, and we're trying to prioritize for the next 5 years what our housing work program is going to look like. All of the stuff that was in the HNA for the strategies are all part of that, but there's the Housing Newberg group had a list. We've had these new things come up from the legislature. So I've got a list of about 45 initiatives that we're trying to prioritize over the next 5 years, given the staffing resources that we have available.
Okay. I'll keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, we're just busy, Charlie. Operating primarily with a staff of about 1.5 right now.
Yeah, and please don't, Charlie. Please keep your mouth open. I appreciate your insight. And whoever has doves in the background, I'm also enjoying that sound. Are you guys hearing that dove sound? Maybe I'm just losing my mind.
That's probably, we have these weird doves that kind of hang out.
No, Charlie, those are all good questions. You know, I wish the world was simpler and, you know, you could follow the string of pearls, but it doesn't work that way.
So I have a question. Don't know if it's as smart as Charlie's, but the question is, how do you know that you have 249 acres of deficiency in industrial land? Is your economic analysis going to tell you what you need as far as how is that number generated? Because I'm thinking, go ahead.
So yes, you can actually see that preliminary work. It's up on the web. It's under our community development planning. You can go to the economic opportunities analysis. And so it's broken down. We've had the consultants go through and look at other communities within the valley to look at what their what we call site characteristics are. And from that analysis, it showed that study says we need X number of acres of parcels that are 1 acre in size. Then we need X number of parcels that are 1 to 5 acres in size. Then we need X number of parcels that are 5 to 25 acres in size. And then we need X number of parcels that are basically 25 to 50, and then we have 50 and above. So that study basically says, so far, preliminary, it says we need one site that's larger than 90 acres. We need one site between 25 and 50 acres. And then the bulk of it is in that 25 acres and less. And so when you add them all up, that's where you get to the 250.
Okay. Sounds good.
And I just don't remember all those numbers exactly off the top of my head. I'm losing it, Abisha. I'm getting old. I'm getting forgetful.
I see all of that gray in your hair. And I think my simple answer to Corey, because my background is not in this work like Doug's is that there is a kind of planned growth formulaic approach, right? So in Oregon, we say all growth should happen inside of city limits. And so if Newberg continues to grow at whatever the said expected rate is, then there's an expectation that that growth will include industrial businesses at this rate. And so kind of you expand that out, and how much land do you need for that to actually happen? And that's a part of the simple formula stuff that I understand. Then you get into the deeper stuff of Doug. But I had been looking at that same question, frankly. So trying to spend some time understanding how did they get to those numbers, and how do you get to those lot sizes that Doug was talking about. And that's really based on industry sectors for targeted growth and average sizes of those sorts of companies and things like that.
Yeah, that's where I was really going, is the industry sectors that you're targeting, what you want to see as far as the makeup of high-paying jobs in your community, what that looks like as far as an industrial type land segment, who's going to be attracted to that type of property that provides that living wage job. Yeah, I'm just kind of interested in we don't have a lot of solutions for heavy logistics, moving freight, big industrial, what you think of as heavy industrial type applications. I think I'd like to see a lot more high tech, healthcare, manufacturing, climax, those kind of companies that are not super big, heavy. I know Harris Thermal has a lot of big stuff, but they are also very successful. So, but yeah, I think we're right outside the metro area. We're not like, if the data is pulling in, if we're taking similar populations that are farther out, away from metro, I think it's not necessarily a good correlation to use that data based on the jobs that would be needed in our area.
Yeah, so Corey, I just pulled it up. So what we did is we went back to our economic development strategy that we created in 2016, and we updated in November of 2019 to align with the community visioning program. And so we've taken some time with the consultants and Abisha and myself, and we've kind of reshuffled the deck a little bit about the targeted industries and collapsed it down a little bit. So though right now the list includes advanced and general manufacturing with companies like dental and medical equipment, machine shops, storage, logistics, and distribution. Not the big distribution, the smaller distribution. Then it's technology and high-tech manufacturing, electronic software, semiconductors, health, medical. These all come out of the NAICS codes. Then food, beverage processing, and agricultural products. So farming, value-added food manufacturing. Forestry and wood products, which includes forest management, lumber and logs, CLT, and then aviation-related industries, because we do have an air park here. So that could be specialty aircraft, air travel, tourism, parts machining, and repair. Again, when you get down to the subsets, they all come directly out of the North American Industrial Classification System. So those are the types of industries, and it's broad sense, that the EOA process is targeting. And then we had the consultants do an LQ table for us, where we know right now we're strong and growing in healthcare, accommodation, and food services. We're strong, we're greater than 1 in manufacturing, but we've had some declines in manufacturing. Then we've got industry sectors that has an LQ less than 1. And those things include like natural resources, wholesale trade, professional services, construction, retail trade, and so forth, which are weak but are growing. What was interesting when we looked at this table a couple of weeks ago is we do not have anything that's in the weak and declining section of that LQ table. So actually we're in a relatively good position. So even if you go back to those industry sectors, some of those were weak and growing, we'd like to move those over to the strong and growing category. And so it gets to, family wage jobs. We're not looking to attract a big, dirty industry, more clean manufacturing related, tech flex, parts and widgets and so forth. But that all plays into housing. As we hear it constantly, is you can't attract the companies if you don't have housing.
Where does George Fox fit into those categories?
They don't, because these were industrial. So Fox actually fits into the public, semi-public land category. So we'll figure more of that out as we go through this process in the next 4 months.
And as you can imagine, when it comes to Newberg, even Yamhill County, so education is one of the higher employers, but Yamhill County, and much of it is because of Newberg, stays one of the top 4 or 5 counties in the state for continued growth in industrial sort of development, so manufacturing. And so we think about that high-tech manufacturing, food manufacturing, that sort of kind of the dental manufacturing, things like that, as the sort of manufacturing for Newberg that works well. Like you said, you know, that really big transportation, not quite close enough to I-5. You don't also want to start running more of that through the city. But Corey, exactly what you're thinking of in terms of that type of targeted industry, I think once you dig into that work that we tried to fine tune just last month, it aligns with that work.
Yeah. The only other thing I would have to say is looking at the deficiencies in land, and I've talked to Doug about this, looking at your existing resources that are available on different sites, like the mill site with the substation that's partially there still, and the rights to use the water out of the river on that site. Those are resources you don't have in other locations for for the bigger industrial use. So I would imagine that you are it's kind of, I have these resources, therefore this is the type of industrial user I'm kind of targeting for this area, because they're close in proximity to resource we already have.
And we're looking at all of that. So we did the Riverfront Master Plan. We're going through the process of implementing that now. So we're doing all the comp plan changes, development code changes, zone changes, annexation. We continue to talk with Westrock, who's looking for a buyer of that site. And part of our EOA analysis is that the mill site will likely fall into a redevelopment category. And so when I talked about this 250 acres of land, it may be when we get further into the EOA, it may say, oh, you already have 90 acres of industrial land for redevelopment. So what you actually need is 150 acres of additional industrial land. But we haven't progressed far enough in that yet, but at least that's where my mind's going, looking at all the data. But again, it all ties back to is you can't attract those kind of companies if you don't have housing to be able to accommodate the workers. The 2017 census information says that we have about 8,500 people who get up and drive out of Newberg every day to go to work someplace else. We have 6,500 people who commute into Newberg for work every day. We have a little less than 2,000 people who actually live here and work here. And so at least I hear from my planning commission is, you know, we don't want to be the bedroom community to the Portland metropolitan area. We want to have more of a balanced community where you can live here and work here. People will make their personal choices. But if we don't have the industrial land to create the jobs and we don't have the land to have the housing so that people can live here and work here, you know, we get stifled and you wither on the vine. So trying to balance again between the economic side and the housing side, try to find that sweet spot.
And the quality of life side. I mean, a lot of the big high tech and the big healthcare, they're looking at quality of life, the parks, right? The tourism component, the cute downtowns like we have, and growing. It's just the more it's gonna attract. That's the quality of life component. I think is an important component that gets businesses thinking on their 10 to 20 year cycles. Hey, do we want to be in Newberg versus another community? It's not just housing, but it's
Yeah.
It's everything. That's why we have a community vision, and it touches on all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I
So
was
we
going to
spent
say
the last
that when we're looking to large businesses that are looking to come in the area, and obviously the mill site is a gem for all the reasons that you mentioned, Corey, and then some. But that's one of the first things we share with them is that Newberg 10 years from now is going to look different than Newberg today, and that they're planning in the right direction. And look at this master plan that they have for the riverfront and for this space, and it incorporates downtown, and now there's this potential urban renewal overlay on that property that's already an opportunity zone and already an enterprise zone, right?
Yeah.
So I think Doug's planning thus far to kind of get there is definitely paving the way for exactly that, Corey.
Thank you.
other questions on HNA? If not, and then I'm going to be down to my last question. Kurt Walker, you've joined us.
He's hiding.
Can't hear you, Kurt. All right, I'll continue on. So I'd sent out the email yesterday inquiring about future meeting dates, and I gave you some options. So hopefully you have your calendars at hand so I can lock this down. So our next meeting, we're looking at either September 30th or October 1st, and it would be at 6 p.m. Which of those two works best for all of you?
Let's see.
Either one. 6 p.m.
Start at 6, Doug?
Yes.
Isn't the 30th Halloween?
Oh, that's like a month
Sept-
later.
September 30th or October 1st.
Oh, September 30th and October. Okay.
I think either could work for me, but I think I'd prefer October 1st if I was choosing between the two.
I'm fine with either.
Me too.
Me too.
Todd, Jack,
Either
Yeah, I'm
one
good.
works for me.
Me too. I had to find it.
okay. Well, says all the rest of you are either would work, but Abisha preferred 10-1. We're going to go with 10-1.
I give my way. Woohoo!
Hey, yeah.
It's the one gimme I'm going to give you in all of 2020.
I'll take it.
Will you be sending out invites?
Yes. I will. Once we lock these down, I'll send out an Outlook calendar so they're on your calendar, and then you will get separate invites for Zoom meetings from Sue.
Okay.
Is that Sue who's been appearing periodically? Oh, that is her. Okay.
Yeah, that's Sue. That's our city recorder.
Hi, Sue.
My right hand. I can't get this stuff done without her. The next meeting would occur on either October 20th or October 22nd.
What are those dates? Are they October 20th is a Tuesday night? Or Thursday night?
I would be absent on the 20th.
The 22nd would be a Thursday night. The first, the other one we talked about was a Thursday night. Maybe we should just stick with Thursday nights.
Thursdays work for me.
10:20
Sounds good.
10:22.
Yep.
Then the last meeting of this group would be on either 12/2 or 12/3.
We can't talk about December already.
Right? I know. Seems like a big commitment.
It is.
December. I don't even go out to the end of September here.
It's all,
So
Talk to me
If you
about
want-
August.
you you were talking about being consistent on Thursday nights. So 12/3 is a Thursday night.
If
Work
if
for me.
if COVID holds, then either night's fine with me.
All right. I'm gonna go with 12/3. So I will get an Outlook calendar appointment out to everybody, so you'll have it on your electronic device, whatever form and brand it is that you use.
Nice.
So for those meetings, like for the next meeting, October 1, are we going to have materials to look at before then, or how's that going to work?
Yes, you'll get a packet of material a week in advance, electronically.
And those will deal with what you thought, section 2, is that the idea? You were mentioning there's updates to section 2's.
The first meeting will be looking at the draft update of the buildable lands inventory. Now, you all have a city email account. Can you all access your city email account?
Do I remember it?
Do you remember your passwords?
I haven't done it
Accessing
yet.
it and doing it is another thing.
I will include in some information that I will send to you instructions about how you access your city email account. For those of you who had an account in the prior HNA work, you probably have forgotten your password.
Oh, maybe not.
If you have, let me know and I will connect you with our IT department so they can help you reset your password. All of the stuff I send goes to your city emails. As a courtesy, I copy your personal emails.
Thank you.
This is my standard spiel. The reason we set up your city email accounts is because of the former Nike Beaverton issue, and we're trying not to make your electronic devices a public device. That, in a worst case scenario, somebody did an investigation and they would come and they would take your electronic device until they could search all of it. And you may have things on there you might not want people to see. That's why we send stuff to your city email account.
Sue was nodding her head. Thanks, Doug, for protecting us from ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
If we reply, we want to reply to yours, just to the city email account, yes?
So when I send you emails, you get them blind copied from me. So the email comes from me to me. You are blind copied. The reason for that is so you do not create a serial online meeting that the public is not aware of and cannot participate in. There is a method to all of the madness.
Can you send a link? Can you send a link to the Outlook? I have my username and password. I just don't remember the link to get to it.
Yes, we'll get you all. We'll get you
Okay.
all of the stuff you need. So yes, we are trying to protect you from yourselves by your volunteerism, which we appreciate immensely.
I thought we were getting some of that $10,000, no?
Don't get
No, sorry, Echo's getting all of that.
There's 5 of us, and so you could split it in 5 ways.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Me too.
Wait, Doug should get a little bit too.
No, I do this for the fun of it all.
Sure you do.
All right, well, that's all I had for this evening. Any other questions?
I have a question for Abisha. Is the organization you work for now, is that what used to be Mid-Willamette COG, or does that still exist? Or
Yeah, the Council of Governments, Mid-Willamette Valley COG still exists, and they are the economic development, what are they called? The the Economic Development Association or something for the 4 county area. SEDCOR is a 501c6 member-based independent nonprofit organization that serves Marion, Polk, and Yamhill counties. We mostly focus on traded sector, business retention expansion, and recruitment. And SEDCOR has been around for about 40 years, and we have served Marion and Polk counties for the majority of that time, and only served kind of more project-based contract work with Yamhill County until about 2018, which is when we started a full-time long-term contract. And my background is manufacturing. So I don't come from planning or from economic development background. I come from a manufacturing business development background. And I just like to get things done. And I'm a sucker for being on a committee for Doug, which is why I think he's giving me a hard time. Because as soon as he says, will you join this committee? I say yes, because I'm always so hopeful that he'll feel obligated to join mine in return.
That's how I got on the workforce committee consortium, you know?
one quick question, Doug. Were there any changes to the draft HNA last summer that either the Planning Commission or the City Council made?
They made no changes.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Kurt, can you talk with us? Are you there?
I think so, yes.
Okay. So, Kurt, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Kurt Walker. Kind of semi-retired, but we're not building anymore or doing any land development, but we've got some real estate we own and some projects we're working on. So we're keeping busy with that. So, and I apologize. I'm not sure what happened, but I could not connect. So it's the first time that's happened to me.
That's okay. I stepped in for you.
Thank you. I knew you would.
So Kurt's our chair. So next meeting, Kurt will call us to order.
Okay, good.
And but Kurt can't adjourn us tonight.
Yeah.
So if you don't have anything else, that's what I wanted to go over with all of you to get this started.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Doug,
Can you send us each other's private emails, or is that outside the means, just so we know, well, if I want to talk to somebody apart from this thing?
I can, if everybody's comfortable with that.
I am.
I'm fine with that.
it's fine.
Cautionary email,
Yeah.
don't hear from the city recorder, is that please don't violate the Oregon Public Meetings Law Act, which
I've
means
heard-
do not deliberate on committee business outside of a public setting. So I'm the one who has to field those complaints, and yes, I do get them. So
I
just
think
letting
we
you
were
know.
admonished last year for doing that, so I'm aware of that now.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
the lady who comes up and goes, don't do that.
Thanks for
Good
Is
reminder.
there, is
So,
there
if
also,
you have questions on how that works, I can send you a basic PowerPoint.
yeah, is there also an issue about how many might be communicating together outside of this forum?
My preference would be is that your communications on this topic are done at these committee meetings, so they all have the same information.
I would agree.
Where you're not making a quasi-judicial decision, which there would be a whole nother set of protocols. But all of these are audio is recorded. The video, since we're doing Zoom, we capture all of that. Audio goes up onto our website so the public can access it and listen to the meetings. And so, conducting business while we're having our hour-and-a-half meetings is the place to have the discussions. Correct, Sue?
There she is.
She's saying yes.
Yes.
Yes, I swear, yes.
Well, I'll give you the same lesson I give employees. Just because it's something you wrote or discussed and you captured a public record doesn't mean I don't have no exemption for embarrassing stories. So if someone puts in a public records request because they want to see what their government's been doing, then I release the record. So don't put anything in writing or have discussions you don't want to end up on the front page of the paper or going viral across social media. Okay.
Thank you, Sue.
Thanks, Sue.
All right, if there's nothing else, Mr. Chair, you can adjourn us.
Well, thank you. The meeting is adjourned. Everybody enjoy the sun's coming back out.
Good deal.
Thanks.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.